I decided to do my final project on Picasso, and just his life and some meaningful art movements that he was a part of and that what influenced him. So first, we're gonna start with his early life. Picasso was born October 25th, 1881 in Spain. He was the son of an academic painter. He was considered a child prodigy who could draw before he could talk. By age 7, he received training from his father. At 9, he painted this picture we see, and by 14, he was outshining all of his teachers at school. Um, Picasso attended Barcelona School of Fine Arts as a teenager and was admitted at a much younger age than would be considered normal for them. He then studied at the Royal Academy of San Fernando in Madrid. So, the very first influence in Picasso's life is going to be his father, Jose Ruiz Velasco. Uh, Picasso's he was Picasso's first teacher and an academic painter. He specialized in realistic depictions of birds and just still life. He trained young Pablo in traditional drawing techniques and emphasized precision and form. It is believed that his father stopped painting after realizing that Picasso had surpassed him as a young teenager. Some classical masters that also were some early influences would include Diego Velázquez, Francisco Goya, and El Greco. You can see what each of them were known for on this slide as well. As a teenager in Barcelona, Picasso was influenced by Catalan modernism, symbolism, and then also an artist, Israel Nonel, who painted marginalized figures with empathy. This is said to deeply shape the Blue period. When Picasso first went to Paris, he ran into three artists, Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, Van Gogh, and Paul Gauguin. These influences began nudging Picasso away from the realism aspect and more towards expression and abstract. In around 1906, Picasso became fascinated by African masks and sculptures and just how their faces were stylized and the spiritual power they seemed to bring. And then also the Iberian sculptures, which were primitive and geometric. These influences directly led to the start of Cubism. So some art periods that Picasso was a part of was the Blue period, from 1901 to 1904. The vibe was melancholy, emotional, had cold tones, said to be triggered by the suicide of a friend, and was dominated by mainly shades of blue and green. In a lot of it, you could see beggars, blind people, prostitutes, and outcasts. And two of his famous works from this art period is The Old Guitarist and La Vie. The second period is going to be the warm period. It was warmer, more romantic, and whimsical. You can see that from the blue period, where it was blues and greens, you get to the rose period, and there is a shift to pinks, orange, and more earthy tones, and is said to be influenced by his relationship. A lot of these subjects included acrobats, Harley Quinns, and circus performers. And two of his famous works are Boy with a Pipe and Family of Saltimbanques. The next period we see is African, proto-cubist, from 1907 to 1909. The vibe was more bold, raw, and criminal. This was inspired by his African tribal art and imperial sculptures that he seemed to have such a fascination with, and this was a really major point for him and led more towards the abstract portion, and was a key development of Cubism. Then from 1909 to 1919, we have Picasso in his Cubism period. It was divided into two subphases: analytical cubism, which was more monochrome, and then we have synthetic cubism, which was bright colors, collage elements, and more abstract. And then these, again, are two of his most famous works during that time period. Next, we have neoclassical and surrealist from 1919 to 1935, one of the longest art periods that Picasso was a part of. And as you can see, it was more of a return to the classical form that he started with and dreamlike surrealism. After World War I, he returned to this more realistic style. In the late 1920s, he incorporated surrealist ideas with disordered figures and strange dreamscapes. The pictures we see here are the woman at the spring and the dream. Next, we have political / the war era, which was mid-1930s to 1945. It was intense, symbolic, and very emotionally charged, and deeply influenced by the Spanish Civil War and then also World War II. This is one of his most iconic works from this era. It was a massive mural condemning the bombing of the Basques town. A lot of his pieces during this time, you could see the theme was suffering, brutality, and anti-fascism. Next, we have the later years, 1945 to 1973, where his vibe was more playful, experimental. Picasso continued to paint, sculpt, draw, and experiment well into his 90s. Styles ranged from expressionist to cartoonish and was always kind of changing. The picture we see on the screen is Self-Portrait Facing Death, which was one of his most famous works during this period. So next we're going to talk about some of the things that have come out and kind of follow with Picasso and the way he did things. So we have revolutionized artistic freedom. Picasso said, "Do whatever you want as long as it's honest." That mentally freed generations of artists from tradition and rules. He showed that an artist could reinvent themselves consistently and constantly, which has been followed by these two artists that we see on the screen, David Bowie and Kanye West, and a lot of visual artists that we have today. A big impact that Picasso had was that a lot of modern and contemporary artists kind of took after him, like Jean-Michel Basquiat, who's used Picasso's expressive style, mask-like faces, and fragment forms. And then also David Hockney, who uses cubism and color play. And George Condo, who creates disordered cubist-inspired figures, often called Picasso on acid. You can also see his fingerprints in different types of street art, neo-expressionism, abstract sculpture, and then mixed media. We do see a lot of Picasso in things that we have today. Graphic design uses cubist style fragmentation and minimalism. That's a lot of like logos and album art. Movies and animations like Disney's Fantasia and Loving Vincent takes cues from Picasso's surreal expressive visual language. We can also see Picasso at museums and market legacies. Museums worldwide, such as the MoMA and the Museu Picasso, is always rotating between Picasso's works, and he still does draw in a lot of crowds. His works remain among the most expensive ever sold, a reflection of both artistic value and cultural chat. He studied in nearly every art history, making him a permanent part of the creative conversation. Picasso has become a symbol of the art genius, for better or worse. His complicated personal life and views have also sparked critical reevaluations, especially around gender, power, and the myth of the tortured male genius. This has prompted a lot of contemporary artists to respond to challenge or remix his legacy. Thank you.